Hello friends, if you're new, welcome to my channel. How about going down and hitting the subscribe button and ringing the bell so you don't miss any episodes? For my fans and subscribers, welcome back. I do appreciate you. Today's topic, Jehovah's Witnesses, the philosophy of history. Not much else I need to say. Let's get on with the video. Jehovah's Witnesses literally believe in biblical history. That is, they believe that history started with the fall of Adam and Eve, and that God literally destroyed the world in a worldwide flood. It survived only by 8 people, and the animals God told Noah to bring with him on the ark. I've already talked about this, and I'm sure I'll talk about it some more in the future. After this supposed deluge, God chose to make a covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, led Jacob's descendants, Israel, out of Egypt, and gave his law to Moses. It should be noted that we have absolutely no proof that any of these people lived or any of these events happened, including the Exodus, which I will get to in a separate video. This law, however, was impossible to achieve and only made evident the sin of man. Thus, to save the world, God sent his Son to die as an atonement for mankind and revealed his will for men and the means of attaining salvation. Christ began choosing a quote-unquote little flock of 144,000 to go to heaven. What about the rest of humanity? They believe all the dead will be resurrected during the millennium, the 1,000-year reign of Christ, except those annihilated at Armageddon. These people who have been resurrected will then be taught by the Jehovah's Witnesses who have made it through Armageddon. Now I want you to think about that just for a minute. According to this NIH article that I found, there has been an estimated 105 billion people that have ever lived on Earth. Today we have 7.5 billion people living on Earth, with about, say, 8 million Jehovah's Witnesses. The 7.5 billion living today is included in the 105 billion number. So, about 7 billion people are going to be massacred at Armageddon for not following the teachings of Jehovah's Witnesses. So, let's round up the figure to 100 billion people. If you are a Jehovah's Witness, you must believe that God is going to bring approximately 100 billion people back to life to live on this planet. People, the planet is struggling to support 7.5 billion. So, first of all, we've got about 9 million Jehovah's Witnesses who need to teach roughly 100 billion people during the 1,000-year reign of Christ. And then it is up to these 100 billion people as to whether or not they will accept the message of Christ and live by quote-unquote Jehovah's standards. The righteous or faithful men of old, like Abraham, John the Baptist, Ezekiel, and David, will be raised to be quote-unquote princes in all the earth, which is pretty messed up if you think about it. Abraham, who the Bible refers to as God's friend, doesn't get to go to heaven, but people like Tony Morris do. Not that I really believe the Bible, but that's pretty messed up. Satan will then be released from his prison into which he was cast before the 1,000-year reign of Christ, and he will have free reign to deceive the nations. Then he, his demons, and all humans who chose to follow him will be destroyed forever. Those remaining will have everlasting life, which is a pretty messed up view of God if you think about it. Follow me or be annihilated forever. But that's what they believe. However, their view of history goes deeper than that. Satan's rebellion against God essentially happened over the free will that God gave mankind. Would man obey God under temptation and persecution? It then became Christian duty to show faith in and obedience to God. This salvation history acts as the cornerstone which guides JW understanding of their own place in history. To them, the early Christian church was the true church, but the apostasy began before the end of the first century. By Constantine's time and the Council of Nicaea, it was almost complete. Later, the Reformation restored this true church to a certain extent. Russell believed that many of the Reformation walked in the dim light of the day, but that Protestantism had not progressed with that light. So God had to raise up witnesses to reveal his will before Armageddon. The JWs believe that they alone are heirs to true Christianity. Following this reasoning, the finished mystery and the April 1st, 1919 Watchtower proposed that God had sent 7 messengers through the ages: St. Paul, St. John, Arius, Waldo, Wycliffe, Luther, and Russell. Professor Alan Rogerson, who comes from a JW background, attacks this idea based on Marley Cole's analysis. As evidence, he argued that Russell did not believe what the other men on the list believed. And in case you were wondering, one of the men whose names appear on the list, Arius, is indeed that Arius of the Arian heresy, which the Council of Nicaea was called to make a decision on whether it was heresy or fact. Of course, they decided it was a heresy, and threw out Arius from the church, excommunicated him. I will be going into the Arian heresy later on this channel, just not now. However, Watchtower has always admitted that Russell had different beliefs than the other men, arguing that God only granted so much light to true Christians. If these teachers turn that into permanent creeds, not advancing with the light, then they and their followers lose God's approval. More importantly, Watchtower no longer feels that the church has had prophets, teachers, or messengers. Since 1927, they have regarded Russell as merely an outstanding Christian who played an important role in history. They do feel, obviously, that many have fallen out of God's favor because their works have not been according to God's will. Jehovah's Witnesses believe that the clergy of Christendom, from Constantine down to the present day, are the composite quote-unquote man of lawlessness mentioned in 2 Thessalonians 2, 3-9. On the other hand, they believed that the true church can be identified. According to them, when Jesus spoke of the faithful and discreet slave in Matthew 24:45, he was speaking of spiritual Israel, or the 144,000 of Revelation. I guess they don't bother to read to the point where it says that Israel is literal. They reason that the church, which started at Pentecost, is composed of an elect class, chosen Christians who have stayed separate from the world. This elect has provided spiritual food for Jesus' servants and have been expecting the second coming since 1874. Over the centuries, a small group of true Christians have been looking toward Christ's second coming and have continued preaching the truth as they understood it, and by this identified themselves as members of the slave class or true church. However, it was only in the 19th century that this elect class came together to form the restored church. Jesus supposedly came back invisibly in 1914. Gee, imagine that. And he inspected Christianity and found only a small remnant of faithful Christians. This small remnant was identified through being separate from the world and demonstrating love for God and man through a worldwide preaching work. Thus, they feel that only they have been God's faithful stewards. Well, friends, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, hit that like button, press the subscribe button, and if you want to know when I come out with new content, hit the bell next to the subscribe button. My Twitter, Discord, email, and PayPal links are in the description, along with the source that I used for this episode. If you wish to get in contact with me, Twitter is the best way, followed by email. Also, if you would, please leave comments in the comment section. Not only do I love hearing from you, but it also triggers the YouTube algorithm. If you have any requests, you can leave those down there as well. Keep learning and searching for truth. Here are a few videos from my library. If you have not watched them yet, go ahead and watch them and tell me what you think. Until next time, friends, stay safe and goodbye.